checking us out. RX Smart Gear Jump Ropes, the best jump ropes in the business. Our title sponsor and such great support from them. You can get your RX Smart Gear Jump Ropes by going to rxsmartgear.com. At checkout, use Clydesdale15, all caps, and you can get 15% off your order. You can buy jump ropes of any color, shape, size. The handles, you can make those whatever you want. You can get the cable at different weights and different lengths depending on your height. So check it out at rxsmartgear.com. Use Clydesdale15 at checkout, and you'll get 15% off your order. That does exclude new additions, new arrivals, and special editions. But check that out. It's a great deal. In addition to that, they're also supporting our hashtag Road to 1,000. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Clydesdale Fitness and Friends podcast, and you have a public profile, every time we hit the century mark with subscribers, we're giving away a brand new RX Smart Gear jump rope. And Dave Newman, the owner of the company, has promised to throw in a couple extras for that winner. So make sure you go over, subscribe, and you have a public profile, and you may be our next winner.
Okay, can we talk about the most delicious protein bars ever made? Bear Bells. These are caramel cashew. These are my go-to. They're my favorite. They have 20 grams of protein, no added sugar. The macros are phenomenal, like 200 calories, less than a handful of grams of sugar in the whole bar. Did I say 20 grams of protein? Yeah. They are delicious, like a treat. Can't believe that the macros are the way they are and that the nutrients are what they are, because they taste like a candy bar. And I know my candy bars pretty well. I'm like a Snickers type of person. There's no aftertaste. They have so many flavors to choose from. If you're not a fan of the caramel cashew, they've got salty peanut. They have a hazelnut nougat. They've got a chocolate dough, a crispy fudge, cookies and cream. What am I missing? White chocolate almond. They're all delicious. I like all of them, but check them out at bearbells.com. Try some for yourself. You won't be sorry. They're delicious. Totally awesome.
Yeah, I think that's better. That's better lighting. I don't look like I'm coming from the heavens now.
There you go. Total supermodel now.
So, what was I going to say? How long have you been doing this podcast for?
About 18 months.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And is it do you try and get like one out a week or?
So we do one on Monday that's like a CrossFit celebrity. And then every Wednesday we release a roundtable where my friends and I just hang out and talk.
That's all. And just chat shop, chat about what's happening in the season, all that sort of stuff. That's obviously a CrossFit podcast as well, the roundtable?
Yeah, although it can go off in all different directions, and we're okay with that. We talk movies, we talk actors. Like this week, it went into a big Patrick Swayze dive and whether he was a good actor or not.
All right. What was the consensus?
Well, my female co-host said yes, he was a great actor. I disagreed with them very much.
A Ghost was pretty good.
Yeah, there's a movie called Youngblood about a minor league hockey team that I loved.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
I thought he was good in that. I thought he was good in Red Dawn.
Yep.
But other than that,
Other than that, not so much. Not a Dirty Dancing fan?
No, not at all.
So you might want to save it for the podcast, but yeah, I vaguely remember our sort of chance meeting at the Mayhem Classic, but I don't know. We're not recording yet, I assume.
We are. I just throw the record on because I don't want to miss anything that may happen good.
Awesome. Oh well, maybe we should just start firing off so I don't skew off into one direction too far. And you can I'll let you take the reins and we'll just go for it.
Well, to our listeners, we are with Brandon Swan, a 4-time CrossFit Games athlete, all around badass. And I need to do a special shout out to my friend Peter at Coffee Pods and Wads who hooked us up. Peter's such a good dude, and
he's a good man.
And glad he hooked us up and we get a chance to do this interview.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I guess the first question is, like, I'm not as familiar with Australia as a lot of people living here in the States. So where did you grow up in Australia?
Yeah, so I actually I still live in the same place as I grew up. I grew up in a small town called Ipswich, which is about 30 minutes west from Brisbane, which is one of the, I guess, main cities in Australia. So we're on the east coast, right up the or towards the top of the country. So it's quite hot where we come from. Most of the year it's quite warm. Even like we're sort of approaching winter, and we sort of still get around in t-shirts and shorts most of the year. So it's nice weather year round, which is really cool. But yeah, I've been here my whole life. I was born in Ipswich. I still live here. Good little. Not. I wouldn't call it a country town, but certainly not a city. We're somewhere in between, and kind of get the best of both worlds, which I like.
Awesome. Are you close to water?
Yeah. We're about an hour from sort of the main beaches. So pretty much everybody I think around the world has heard of the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, and all that. And then we've also got the Sunshine Coast, which is sort of in the other direction. But I'm quite lucky where I am, where I'm sort of smack bang in the middle of those two, and it's about an hour to each of those coastlines, which is, it would be nice to be closer, but it's not too far away if you want to get down to the water for the weekend.
And so I was doing some research on you, and I heard you say that you played footy as a kid.
Yep.
And to us in the States, that is soccer.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we call so in Australia, like we sort of refer to it as soccer as well, but it's starting to sort of become more. I think it's universally starting to become recognized more as football now. But for us, footy, as we call it, is usually referring to rugby. And there's two types of rugby that we play in Australia. There's rugby league and rugby union, which I won't get too far into the details of how they differ, because it's quite confusing and probably boring to most of your listeners. But I mainly played rugby league, but I dabbled in both types. But when you hear me say footy, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Well, it's funny because the only other athlete I've had on that has played rugby was female.
Right. Interesting. And who was that?
Brooke Haas.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And is she American? I think she's American.
She is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because rugby's sort of, I wouldn't say it's a hugely popular sport in America, but there's a substantial amount of people play it. Am I right?
Yeah. Her story is that she played soccer in college, and then there was like a rec league that she played, and they kicked her out because she was too violent. So she went and played rugby.
Yeah, cool. It's it was definitely, I love it. The only thing that's ever held me back from going back and trying to play again is the fear of getting injured and ruining a season of CrossFit for me. So I've never gone back, but I played all through from my young junior years all the way through till about 18 years old, which is when I sort of moved into CrossFit. I actually got into CrossFit to become a better rugby player. I was sort of playing at the, I guess, semi-professional level, you would call it. I was young and trying to break into the professional level, like I think all young budding sports stars want to do. You want to play professional sport. And I was a little bit too small for the position I played in. Just a little bit too small, maybe a little bit too slow, and needed to do something different to try and break through to the next level. So I got into CrossFit training to try and become more explosive, more powerful. And I fell in love with CrossFit, and sort of the rest is history. I made the switch.
Well, now you've read my notes, because that was one of the next questions, was how you made the transfer to CrossFit, but you've already answered that. So I'm going to go in a different direction. Your wife's name is Kelly.
Yes.
How did you guys meet?
CrossFit.
Really?
Yeah. So she was, I for 4 years, I ran my own affiliate. So in in the back end of 2011, I started my own affiliate out here called CrossFit Western Front, which is still running. A couple of the people that I had as trainers now own the gym, and they're doing a fantastic job with it. As sort of the sport evolved and things became more professional, it was getting more difficult to be an athlete, run a gym, and I had some other opportunities to chase as well. So for 4 years, I had that gym. She was a client. I promised myself I would never break this sacred coach-client relationship, but she fell in love with her the moment I saw her, and she was a client first, and she was very shy and I was kind of shy, and we were both in relationships at the time, and as fate would have it, both those relationships ended, and down the track we found out that we were both single, and yeah, and away we went, and we've been together for about 8 years now, and we've been married for three, nearly 3.5, and we've got a young son now, and yeah, it's crazy. We both look at it as like we both look back and think about the first time we saw each other and can't believe where we are now. It's awesome. We're going well, which is good.
Yeah, and so your son Nate is a couple years old now.
Yeah, he'll be 2 at the end of June, so he's 22 months old at the moment. So nearly 2 years old, and definitely approaching the terrible 2 stage if he's not in it already. It's every day is an adventure, but I love it. It's fantastic. I love being a dad.
And how did that change your life, becoming a dad?
It made me more organized. That's for sure. It's when I think, I mean, the vast majority of my life, my life's dominated by CrossFit, whether I like it or not, because it's as an athlete, it comes with you everywhere. We were on holidays during the quarterfinals, and so our family holiday kind of got dominated by CrossFit a little bit because I had to get these scores in for the quarterfinals and do workouts and find gyms and when we're up and away. So it kind of comes and goes with you everywhere, and it's part of your life on a day-to-day basis. And you're tracking all your food and trying to sleep well, and no matter how you sort of try to slice it and dice it, it's always there. And one thing I guess I never really considered much was how organized my day had to be, because I had all the time in the world to train, and now I don't, because I've got this little human being I've got to keep alive and keep entertained. So it's made me far more organized, but I think in a lot of ways it's made me a better athlete, because I'm much better at working with schedules and adjusting to stress or changes in the plan. And so when it comes to going to a competition, if little things change on the fly, I don't really get fazed by that stuff anymore, because it's part of my day-to-day routine now. I've got to adjust. Some days things go perfectly to plan. Some days I don't go to plan at all. Some days I have, 3-4 hours of training to do, and I only get 1 hour done. So I try to make sure that I prioritize things, and I try to make sure that I make every opportunity count, because there's a good chance that I won't be able to do everything in that day. But yeah, in a lot of ways, I think it's made me a better athlete, and that kind of is reflecting in my results, because I kind of had a bit of a lull in my career in the middle, and I've kind of been steadily building back towards some good form the last couple of years, and my best forms come after I've had a baby. So yeah, I think it's definitely made me a better athlete in a lot of ways, which is cool.
So I have a weird question to ask you. Are you familiar with the video game Mario Brothers?
I'm familiar with it. I don't know how deep my knowledge is going to stretch, but go for it.
So my friends and I, we talk about marriage as it's like Mario Brothers. Right. The goal is to collect all those coins.
Yep.
Because you're going to have to spend them to do something that your wife doesn't want you to do.
Yep.
And then you have to refill the bag by doing stuff for her.
Totally.
And earn new coins, right? So doing the quarterfinals on holiday had to be a big spend of the coin bag.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I am extremely lucky, because my wife met me through CrossFit. She knew what she was signing up for, and she understands that's a huge part of our life. And even if the quarterfinals weren't on that weekend, I would have been training probably. And I try to do my best to make sure that I'll get up early before she gets up and go and find a gym in the local area and get most of my training done in the morning, so that we have the day to spend together on holidays or whatnot. But when we found out that the quarterfinals were on, and basically a whole couple of days were going to be defined by this event, yeah, it was a little bit of a that sucks kind of moment. But I'm extremely lucky, because my wife is my biggest supporter. She's my biggest fan. I think she claims that she's fans of other guys more so than me, but I think she's my biggest fan. And it's so that helps a lot, because it's I've been previously the relationship I was in, CrossFit was a big sort of spending point in the relationship. It kind of caused a lot of tension, because I spent a lot of time in the gym and missed a lot of things, and my priorities were very different to my partner's at the time. And I'm extremely lucky that I found someone that supports and believes in what I do, and that's made the vast majority of my career very easy to navigate.
So when you started doing CrossFit and it was, when you started that, it was just to be a better rugby player.
Yep.
At what point did you do it and say, oh my gosh, I could be really good at this?
Yeah, it's funny. It was very fast. I started. I still remember the date. I don't know why I remember, but my first ever CrossFit workout that I went to an official CrossFit gym was the 24th of September, 2010, and the workout was a hero workout called Tyler, which has sumo deadlift, high pulls, and muscle ups. And I didn't do muscle ups. I did like a jumping muscle up, but like straight away, the coach at the gym was like no one can just jump up and stabilize the rings like that. So there was already that sort of knowledge of, there was a little bit of talent there. I didn't think much of it. I already had some really decent strength numbers. Maybe not so much nowadays, but at the time they were quite big for anyone in the sport. Like I came into the sport with a 220 kilogram deadlift and a 200 kilogram back squat and all that, because as rugby players we trained a lot of those lifts. So I already had a good strength base, and I luckily found that some of the skills really came to me easy. Things like handstand walking came to me a lot easier than it came to a lot of other people. And I had a decent level of conditioning, because as a rugby player, you've got to play for 80 minutes at a time, and that's sort of without stoppages. So I had great conditioning. I had good strength base. I picked up the skills easily. And then I did a couple of local competitions just for fun while I was still playing rugby. And again, it was very local, and the sport was very underground at the time. But I podiumed at my first competition, and then the next one I did, I won. And then I qualified for regionals the following year, which was the very first year of the Open. So by 2011, within a space of a year, I sort of had a bit of an inkling that I could, with some serious time and effort, I could have a run at the CrossFit Games, and that's what I set out to do. So I stopped playing football, and off I went. That was scarily 10 years ago.
Yeah, my first workout was a hero workout as well.
What was it?
Murph.
No. Yeah, the hero workout, right?
Yeah, I was 500 pounds. Walked into a
Wow.
CrossFit gym and saw that on the board.
That's amazing. Oh yeah, I actually, a couple of my clients that I had who still remain good friends of mine to this day rocked up. It wasn't Murph, but it was the first workout was Chelsea, which is a round of Cindy every minute on the minute for 30 minutes, and they were heavily overweight at the time, no base level of fitness, and they came in, and my knowledge as a coach back then, I would never ever give that workout to someone of that sort of level of fitness nowadays. But back then it was kind of like, you'll be right, come in, this is CrossFit, it's meant to be tough. And it was obviously scale, but they were questioning why the hell they turned up to this place to train. And luckily they stuck around and kept putting in the work, much like yourself, and kept getting results. But that's a tough entry to the sport for sure.
Yeah, I did it super scaled, and I think 18 months later I did it RX. And
that's amazing.
And on the end of the mile run, I just started bawling.
Yeah, just overwhelmed with emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was the one you did RX that you started crying?
Yeah, the one I did RX.
It shows you and that's really the magic of what we do. And I'm so privileged to be at the tip of the spear, so to speak, and to get to do what I do and compete with some of the fittest athletes in the world. But the real oh my gosh moments are happening at affiliates on a daily basis, and it's so cool to hear stories like that, and the way that a fitness program can truly change someone's life. It's amazing.
So much so. And so you make it to the games.
Yep.
And then in 2013, you have a big accident.
Yeah, I did. So 2013 was the first year that they programmed legless rope climbs at the games. I mean, they're very much a mainstay now. It's crazy how much the sport's evolved, because they'll program legless rope climbs at an affiliate now. It's just it's just part of the training regime. But they'd never appeared in competition at that point. And the workout was thrusters and legless rope climbs. And none of us were used to it back then. And I'm pretty sure we weren't allowed to use our legs on the way down. We might have been, but I can't remember it. The matting that we had underneath the ropes wasn't soup. They weren't using the massive big sort of drop mats that they use these days. So people's grip was blowing out sort of towards the back end of the workout, and because we weren't used to this new stimulus, and mine did, and it might have been like the 7th or 8th rope climb, so like the second last round of the workout, and I got right near the top, and I could feel myself starting to slide down the rope. My hands were starting. You'd do one rep, and then you'd feel your hand just starting to slide back down. I was like, oh, I'm going here, and I was close to the top. And when you're in competition mode, you don't really think about the risks or the adverse effects of some of the decisions you make. You just, as an athlete, you just make a decision to go for it, and it's all about completing the workout, right? So I was near the top, and my hands were slipping, and so I made the decision just to reach and touch the beam at the top without thinking about what I was doing with my other hand, and completely let go of the rope. I touched the top and slid all the way down to the bottom and landed on my feet, but just felt like a shock of lightning went through my body. And at first I thought it was my back, because I'd landed so hard that I had this extremely sort of, like I said, violent shock go through my back, and I couldn't breathe. And Dave Castro came over and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I think so." And then I tried to walk, and my knee was pretty heavily busted up as well. But again, I thought that was just from the impact. And then the workout finished. I didn't complete the workout. And then as I cooled down, I realized that it was actually pretty bad. And so we went to the hospital that night, and my knee was completely busted up. I'd fractured my tibia and damaged the meniscus in my left leg and my knee. So I was out of the competition early at that point. So yeah, I think that was on day 2. It was the Friday night in the tennis stadium, and I had to pull out of the games early. So that was unfortunate. And I also found out later down the track, I had some pretty bad stress fractures in my spine at the end of the 2014 season, and they're reasonably confident that the fall from the rope could have potentially started that process of weakening as well. So maybe not fractured to a degree, but the doctor I saw was pretty confident that a fall like that could have certainly contributed to the back injury as well, which sort of didn't really present itself, for some time. So it was quite a lot to deal with and a lot to come back from, but we're still here.
So your individual years were 12, 13, and 14?
Yeah, that's correct. So I competed as an individual 12, 13, and 14. And then had a few ordinary years in the middle. And then I went back to the games as a team member in 2019, the year when we could have super teams.
And so of those first 3 years, what was your favorite event that you got to do at the games?
Oh, favorite event that I got to, it's really hard to narrow down to one. I really enjoy, and nowadays as well, I really enjoy things that are just so far out of not because they're the best events or the events that have done the best in results wise, but I've always enjoyed doing things that you cannot simulate in the gym, or something that's, at the Mayhem Classic, for example, I really enjoyed the first event, which was the ruck run up the mountain, just because, whenever am I going to run up a mountain in Tennessee again? Never. So that was really cool. So, but at the games, so some of those events like Pendleton was awesome, which was in 2012, because it was just epic scenery and you're on this camp base, and that was my first ever CrossFit Games event. So that was a huge moment. I really enjoyed that. Unfortunately, in 2013, I didn't get to do too much. But the one that sticks out from memory was the half marathon row. Again, not because it was at all enjoyable, but at the time when they said this is what we're doing, we were all like, "You're kidding, right?" Since they've done a marathon row, which is even more insane. But at the time, the half marathon row was crazy, and I have vivid memory of, because in that event, the first 2 kilometers was a separately scored event. So I just remember everyone going out really hot, guns blazing. And then for me, I didn't feel like I recovered till about the 7 or 8 kilometer mark. You were just in the pain, just in so much pain trying to recover from this 2K row. Like anyone that's done a max ever 2K row knows how bad it is. We finished our 2K row, and then you had 19 kilometers to go. That was crazy. So that was an awesome event. 2014. One of the events we did was the push-pull event, which the famous footage is of, I think, Rich Froning and Josh Bridges going head-to-head, dragging the sled at the end. I did very badly in that event. I think I actually came dead last. or very close to dead last. But I was the last to finish in my heat, and I've never had a cheer so big as I did that night, because the whole stadium, the entire tennis stadium, was cheering me on to finish this workout. And I got over the line. I stood on the platform and got through it, and just this overwhelming standing ovation from the crowd, which you never really want to be the last guy finishing. And as an athlete, you kind of feel like it's a bit of a pity party when you get that sort of reception, but at the same time, it was unbelievable to just have that moment. So that's probably the moment that stands out for me from 2014.
Happened to me yesterday at the gym.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the last guy, but man, when everybody was cheering for me, it made me push harder. It made me finish harder.
And it's for me, I guess my personality type is I kind of don't like it, but I also really like it. Like I don't like being the last person to finish. I think any athlete is the same. Like you don't feel like you've done your job well if you're the last one on the floor. But at the same time, it's a good reminder of how incredible this community is and how unique the sport is. There's not too many other sports out there where your competitors and the entire crowd, regardless of who they're there to cheer for, gets you over the line, which is really nice.
So then the next couple of years, as you're calling them your more common years or whatever it is, you said, you were close to making the games. You just always seem to narrowly miss it.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been a while now. But certainly I guess 2015 was an interesting one because like I mentioned before, I had that back injury and I spent a great deal of the off season of 2014 rebuilding and sort of rehabilitating around that injury. And I also had I had some changes. That was the first year I'd sold my gym actually. And I'd moved on. I was coaching in another gym, and there's a lot of changes going on at the time. But for me, as I've reflected in the last couple of years, I'm a bit older and wiser, and can look back on my time. I never consider anyone to be lucky in this sport, because you really do make your own luck. CrossFit's the unique thing I love about this sport more than any other sport that I know of anyway, is that it rewards above everything hard work and preparation. Like in a team sport, or in other sports that require a bit more skill or talent, you can rely on, you can sort of get by a little bit to a degree on just how talented you are at particular skills. Or if you're in a team sport, you can piggyback off other teammates. But as an individual CrossFit athlete, it really just comes down to who's worked the hardest for the past 12 months and who's the most prepared for the test. So I never consider things lucky, but it was kind of a perfect storm in 2012 when I first qualified for the games, because in 2011 I came 31st at the regional, and I was a young kid, and I kind of just decided that, or I figured out that I just wasn't as strong as all the other guys. I need to get stronger. So all I did for 12 months was lift heavy weights all day, every day. I lifted heavy. All my workouts were heavy. And then in 2012, the programming got noticeably heavier. Like it just went up a notch. Like it was that year we had, like the first workout was Diane, and then the second workout had 100-kilogram hang power cleans, and there was, there was a snatch ladder, and there was a 45-kilogram or 100-pound dumbbell for the first time. And because I'd done so much heavy lifting, I was just better prepared for the test than a lot of the other guys. And I jumped up to third place that year, qualified for the games. And for the next couple of years, I sort of piggybacked off that and kept performing well. But then in 2015, 16, 17, the sport started to get a bit more expansive and better athletes were coming into the space. And I was probably still doing a lot of what I was already doing and wasn't looking at ways to advance myself further. And I had some massive holes in my game. I didn't invest enough time in my aerobic capacity at the start of my career. Some of my gymnastic volume needed some work, and I hadn't addressed those things, and so that come back to bite me. And so in 15, that definitely came back to bite me. And then 16, 17, I probably still was a little bit in the dark about what I needed to be fixing. I was probably investing too much time doing weightlifting and those sorts of things, and again, there was those skills that had me come unstuck. And then I had to really sort of go back and sort of figure out what was wrong. It took a really big failure in my book to make some serious changes. In 2015 and 16, I missed out, but I was in the mix for most of the weekend, and had a couple of things go my way. I may have qualified. In 2017, I was never in the race. I came 21st at the regional, and I was from event one all the way through the weekend. I was never even close to making it, and that was when I had to really look within myself and decide if I wanted to keep doing this and what changes was I going to make to get myself back in the mix and become a competitive athlete again in Oceania or in the Pacific at the time. And that's when I started the rebuild. I made some big changes and started focusing on some things. And from 2018 forward to now, I've had, I haven't quite got back to the games yet, but like 2018, I missed out by the narrowest of margins. I think I came 8th, but I was 3 points out of 5th, which it was so close going into that last workout. 2019, I decided to go teams with Project X because it was the season was all over the place, and we thought we'd just go team and see how things went. Last year, obviously, we had COVID, but I've very much come into my own. And I'm feeling confident and having almost a renaissance period in my career now, which is nice.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second, but I want to ask about Project X a little bit.
Yeah.
So that team comes together, and I believe the active roster was you and Con and Harriet Roberts and Jess Coughlin.
Yes.
Okay. And so the first question I have is, then you have the ex-Terminators who name themselves just to take you out.
Yep.
And so what was that battle like by the two Australian teams trying to get after each other?
Yeah, it was. I mean, that sort of. I mean, we have a term in Australia. I don't know if you guys have this term in Australia, in America. Sorry, but in Australia we have a term that we call taking the piss, which is just it's very much an Australian way of humor, and we like to enjoy ourselves and make fun and have a bit of banter, and so I guess from those guys it was a little bit of a piss take, so to speak. But for us, I thought it was awesome. Like you are only lifted by your competition, So we came out we decided to get the team together. We came out and did the first sanctional of the season, which was the Australian CrossFit Championships, and we pretty much swept the floor. We won every event. I think we came second in the first event, which was a water event, and then we won everything else after that. So it was pretty much a clean sweep. And then we had another sanctional coming up, which was the Down Under CrossFit Championship. And those guys got their team together, and they brought James Newbury in and Matty Sturt, who were going to be competing individually, but basically put this super team together to try and take us out. But I thought it was excellent. And I thought it was a good way for us to really fire up going into the games. That weekend was an awesome weekend of competition. We actually ended up drawing on points. I think it was a tie, if I remember correctly. And then they decided to do a count back or something, and they just decided that the Exterminators won the weekend. But I think on points it was a tie. So it was super tight race the whole time. And I don't know, like I like a bit of rivalry and a bit of banter, so I really enjoyed it.
We're going to take a short break from our interview to tell you about our newest sponsor, Up Before You Coffee. They are an amazing coffee. It is delicious, has different little notes of chocolate and things like that. And it's really clean and crisp when you drink it in the morning. But they have a light roast. They also have a medium roast, as you can see there. We are so excited about the sponsorship. If you use Clydesdale 20, all caps, Clydesdale 20, you can get 20% off your order. Just go to upbeforeyou.com and order your coffee. It's delicious. You'll love it. And being teammates with Con, we've actually had Con on the show before, and he's just a riot. Much fun to be around. What was it like being his teammate?
It was the best. We Khan and I have been friends we both qualified together in 2014 and really got close that year and have been friends ever since. And but as anything goes, he lives down in Sydney and we're not super close to one another. So over the years, I wouldn't say we drifted apart, but we've always remained friends. But never really got to spend a huge amount of quality time together. And doing the team was so much fun because we really got to come together. We were together, many weekends over the year, training. And I was from Brisbane. The other three were from Sydney, so I was always traveling down there and staying with Khan. And so to be able to sort of get together again and become closer as mates was awesome. And since then, we've been even closer than before. And it's funny because we lead our lives in a lot of ways are polar opposites of one another. Khan loves to go out and have a beer and have a social life, and I definitely don't have that because I live in little old Ipswich with my wife and son. So our lives are very different, but we find common ground and in a lot of things, and we're very much I'm the yin to his yang and vice versa. And whenever we need advice on things, he's the first person I call, and I'm the first person he tends to call. And I switched to weightlifting last year. For a period of time, and then come back into CrossFit, which I'm sure we can talk about soon. But he was the very first person I called. I spoke to him about it before I spoke to family members or anyone else. And his opinion means a lot to me, and I think he knows me really well and always gives good advice. And I like to think I can provide that back to him the same way. So yeah, it's great fun. But the team, being on a team with Khan was I will remember the off floor moments a lot more than I'll remember the on floor moments, put it that way. If that's anything to go by.
Yeah, I think that would have been a prediction by a lot of people.
Yeah.
The last question I have about the team is, because you were so far apart, you actually talked about in an interview somewhere where you did a rhythm test or like a beep test where you would learn the rhythm of the other athletes by beeps.
Yeah, so we used I can't remember what the actual term is. It called someone will know the name of the tool that's used, but like musicians will use it or whatever.
Like a metronome?
Metronome, yeah. So we just used a metronome app, and we decided we would do a couple of workouts because we weren't training together every week, every day. You got teams like CrossFit Mayhem who are training together on a daily basis. They're obviously the gold standard, and a lot of teams could do that. And we would get together maybe 1 or 2 weekends a month, but we would spend the majority of our training by ourselves. And a lot of the training was just individual training anyway, addressing your own weaknesses to make sure you were better for the team. But we would have team workouts that we would do each week in our program. And what we would do is we would have a set workout, and we would do the reps to a metronome. So we would all do the workout to the same pace. So it was to get used to working at a pace that wasn't actually your own. Sometimes it felt easier because you were moving a little bit slower and more intentionally. A lot of times it felt way harder than you thought. And you realize how much you rest on certain things. So it was actually a really good tool because it sort of made you realize where you may have to make some improvements if you think you're good at something, and then you can't keep up with this metronome, and it makes you realize you got to work on something a bit more. So, but we did that probably a couple of times a week for a few months, and it was a good way to when we would come together and jump on things like the worm where you need to be in sync or doing synchronized movements together. It made the transition a lot more seamless.
Yeah, it sounds like an awesome idea. And so you mentioned, and this is where my timeline's a little fuzzy in my research. You mentioned that you switched to weightlifting for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that was Olympic lifting. And I'd heard that, and that you had done that. And then also that you suffered a very horrific elbow injury.
Yes.
Did the weightlifting switch come first or the elbow injury?
So the weightlifting switch came first. So if I back it up to the start of last year, the start of 2020, prior to COVID and all that sort of stuff happening, the first sanctional of the season. So right at the start of 2020 was Mayhem Classic, which is where we met. And then 2 months after that was the first Australian sanctioned event, which was the Australian CrossFit Championships, which was the same event we did as the team the year before and qualified from. So I did that event. I placed 5th in that event. I had a very bad day one. We had some beach events. I did terribly in a couple of them and had to sort of claw my way back. And unfortunately, I got myself into 5th and had a pretty good weekend after that. But obviously, it was out of a qualifying spot with them only taking 1 spot from each sanctional. So I was kind of, the sport was very much, I wouldn't say in disarray, but a lot of things within the sport, I don't know, without saying too much, I didn't really enjoy that event in general. And I basically sort of I don't know. I was ready to make a bit of a switch or a change because I don't know. I really liked the regionals and I really loved the way the sport was, and it just didn't really feel the same. And I'd been doing it for a while, and the opportunity to try some weightlifting came up. I'm very lucky where the Australian weightlifting team coaches are based in Brisbane, and sort of an opportunity came up to train in weightlifting and potentially go for a Commonwealth Games spot, which for the American viewers and listeners, the Commonwealth Games is kind of like it's not quite to this standard of the Olympics, but
it would be like our Pan American Games.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, exactly. So we have like Great Britain, Australia, Canada, a lot of the Commonwealth countries that compete. Tia famously won the gold medal in weightlifting for Australia at the last Commonwealth Games, and I've been able to represent my country in CrossFit, and the opportunity to potentially represent my country in another sport had come up, and I thought that I would go for it. So I basically put CrossFit on hold for a couple of years with the goal to qualify for the 2022 Commonwealth Games in weightlifting, and I was going to compete in the 89 kilogram class. I was going really well, building good numbers, and then suffered a really bad elbow injury during weightlifting session. So right towards the end of a training cycle, we were testing some 1-rep maxes, and I'd been building and increasing my snatch quite rapidly, and I knew that sort of the 140 kilogram snatch was sort of my target, and I was building really close to it. The week before I'd hit 138, and I just narrowly missed 140, and I really wanted it badly. And I went into the gym one day, and yeah, just nothing went right that day. I should have, looking back, should have read all the signs, but nothing went right, and it ended with a dislocated elbow. Lost the bar behind me, dislocated my elbow, and also ruptured some tendons and ligaments in and around the elbow, which often happens with a dislocation. So that required surgery. It's not an injury that requires surgery for a lot of sports, but for weightlifting and CrossFit, where you need to lock out your elbows for a lot of movements, it did require surgery. It was a necessity. And I still at that point was getting back into weightlifting. I was still chasing that 2022 Commonwealth Games even after the surgery. I wasn't deterred by it. But about 6 weeks into my rehab after the surgery, I actually found out that my weight category wasn't going to be included at the upcoming Commonwealth Games. So I would have to either lose 9 kilograms or gain 9 kilograms and move into a different weight class, which both of those things weren't really viable options. The losing 9 kilograms was not really viable in terms of just, I talked to my dietitian and we just didn't really see that as an option. Gaining 9 kilograms was certainly a viable option, but the numbers that the guys in that class were hitting, I wasn't going to be able to work my way up to in that short of time. They've just got some amazingly strong lifters. I would have been having to clean and jerk upwards of probably close to 200 kilograms. So that probably wasn't going to happen. I was realistic about that. So I luckily had a nice fallback option to come back to CrossFit. And in that time, the sport had changed in a lot of ways for the better. Ownership had changed. There was they were talking about restructuring the season, and so we're back to this model now where we've got semi-finals, which are a lot more like regionals, and things are a bit more controlled, and so it all made sense for me to come back, and so I made the decision 6 weeks into my rehab that I wasn't going to be going back to weightlifting. I was going to make a comeback to CrossFit, and here we are.
So I saw the video of the accident, and I'm so glad that the video cut off shortly after it happens.
Yep.
And in that video, you have a quote that I think I'm going to put up on my garage gym wall. And Cool. It is, "Stop waiting for motivation and start cultivating discipline."
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome quote. I actually got that from I don't know if you've had him on the show yet, or if he does come on at some point, but I got that quote from James Hobart.
Yeah, I've had him on the show.
Yeah, he posted it. I think he posted it via his wife even. But it was around that time I saw it, and I was like, that is the perfect quote for me. And it's just, it's a good reminder that, motivation comes and goes, but if you're disciplined enough and you just get out and start every single day and you make little things happen, and just move the needle just inch by inch, big things happen. Little things become big things. So, and that was really the I guess the quote or the mantra that I lived by as I rehabbed my elbow, because it was just, today I can do this much, but tomorrow I'll be able to do this much, and the next day I'll be able to do a little bit more. And I just took it day by day, and I made sure that I was disciplined in my rehab. And without being stupid about it, if my instruction was to do 5 sets of 10 banded such and such, I was doing 5 sets of 15, or I was doing 5 sets of 10 in the morning and again in the evening, and I was doing all the recovery things necessary, and I was looking into my diet, and I was making sure that any 1% chance I could take to improve my injury, to maybe get me back to competing, 1 sooner, but 2 at all, was a chance I was going to take. So that's that quote really helped get me through, particularly the first couple of months where things were could have gone either way. I actually put up a post on Instagram this morning because I had a question from a young teenage athlete about what was the most important lesson I learned from my injury, and I said to them, not to take anything for granted, because life can change in a split second. Because for me it did. I was making big jumps in my lifts and everything was going super well and training was going fantastic, and then I had this massive hurdle with the injury, and it literally was a split second. I went from feeling great to having my elbow sticking out the wrong way within seconds. My whole life had changed. So, and there was no guarantee that I'd be able to come back to CrossFit or weightlifting, because with elbow dislocations, a lot of them never straightened properly again. And so for me, it was, I had to take every chance I possibly could with my rehab to make sure that I gave myself every possible opportunity to come back and get my elbow back to full strength, just so I'd be able to compete again. And the only way I got to where I am now is through daily discipline. So it's a great quote, and still something that I feed off on a daily basis.
So your mindset during that time, one, you've suffered this injury and you've got to come back, seemed to be really good. But I'm sure there were down days where you had to look at that quote or something to get you through the day. And then the next hurdle is, how do you go back to snatching?
Very lightly. It's same thing though with I'm back up to snatching almost my sort of max numbers again. I haven't truly maxed out yet, but I've worked back up to so the heaviest I've gone with a snatch right now is 125 kilograms, or 275 pounds for a double. So that was for 2 reps. I haven't gone past that yet, just because I haven't needed to, but I know there's some more in the tank. But I started with an empty barbell, and for a while there, every jump was scary. I remember the first time I felt really scared was when I went back to 90 kilograms. For some reason, that weight was where just things started to feel, where the bar started to feel a little bit heavier, and I didn't really feel super confident anymore. And from that point, every single time I made a jump forward, your motivation to come back collides with the image or the memory of what happened previously. And it's literally at 95, at 100, at 105, at 110, every single ladder or rung on the ladder that I've stepped up, I've set myself up to snatch, and I've had to convince myself that everything was going to be okay, because you've got one half of your brain telling you to go for it, and you've got the other half going, but remember when this happened? So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have that for as long as I keep competing. It's just something I'm going to have to deal with now. We just keep making little jumps forward, and so far so good. We'll see. Hopefully, like I said, when I get into competition mode, if I have to do anything particularly heavy, let's say at the Torian Pro in 5 weeks' time, hopefully that athlete mindset takes over, where I'm at the top of the rope and my hands are slipping, but I'm going to touch this beam because I don't care if I fall. I need to get this rep. And so hopefully that mindset takes over, because whilst it can put you in challenging predicaments with injuries, it's also the mindset that helps you win competitions. So when push comes to shove, I'll hopefully be that guy.
Sounds good. And so I want to kind of talk about that. You've said that you feel like you're in a renaissance, and that
Yep.
the career is coming back. And the quarterfinals, you did very well. You finished 6th in Oceania.
Yep.
Well above the cut line. You're going to move forward to the Torian Pro. And that's a place that's been really good to you.
Yes, very good. I was extremely excited when I saw that was the semi-final event for Oceania. If I was going to pick one competition in the world for me to qualify for the games through, it would be the Torian Pro. I don't know. For me, I've got a good history of competing there. I've never not finished on the podium at that competition. I've won the last 2, and it's in my backyard. I really do believe in hometown advantage, and it's kind of, I feel like it's my jungle, and I'm the king of it, and I want to maintain that crown. So I'm really excited and confident going into the next one. And the last one I won was the second one in a row, and no one had ever won 2 Torian Pros in a row. And now I want to make that 3. So hopefully this year is the 3-peat.
It's funny you say that, because
the games.
I was a competitive swimmer coming up, and there was one pool that whenever I swam there, I PR'd.
Yep.
And I don't know what it was. It's the same length as every other pool in the world.
Yeah.
Right. But for some reason in that building, like that's my place, and nobody's going to beat me.
And it's funny. Like, that's the way I feel. Like I've got a really good crew and community I train with here, and I got an old friend who runs the gym that I train in now. And I was talking to him. I said, it's funny. In every time I've won a big competition, I kind of knew I was going to win. Like, going into it, like I knew I was going to win. I felt like I was going to win, and there was never a doubt that crossed my mind. And I've got that feeling about this competition. So that's nothing's guaranteed, but that's a good omen. Every time I've felt that way, things have gone the way I've wanted them to. So hopefully that's a good message for me going through into this competition as well.
Well, I'm going to finish up with this little story, and then we're going to hit some rapid fire to end the show. But I'd heard that you went to Olympic lifting. I heard that you had the accident, and then I don't know what happened. I didn't hear from you for a while, like in social media and stuff. And I was talking to Peter the other day, and I looked at the leaderboard for Oceania, and I was like, oh my gosh, Brandon's back. Like, when did he come back to CrossFit? And like your scores were awesome. And that's how we got talking about you. And that's how this kind of got hooked up.
Cool.
And I told Peter, like, you were one of the nicest guys I've ever met in CrossFit. When we met at the Mayhem Classic, I was volunteering and I was doing security at the one gate, and you came over and said, anything you need. And that's very odd for an athlete to come over and ask a volunteer if there's anything they need. Like, it's your competition weekend, not mine. I'm there to support you. And so that blew me away that you were that nice of a guy.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think, we chatted briefly before coming on, and you reminded me of that situation. And, like I think I've had a very interesting career. It hasn't always gone to plan. It certainly didn't go the way I thought it would. If you go back and ask the kid that made 3 CrossFit games in a row, he thought he was going to make it every year for the next 10 years. And that didn't happen. And I've had a lot of obstacles I've had to overcome. I've had some big injuries. And now at the point I am with my career and with my family and, everything that CrossFit's given me, I'm immensely grateful for the life I get to live. And I don't take it lightly that I'm incredibly privileged to do what I do. And I also realize that it's not going to last forever. And so I feel a need to give back where I can in small amounts. I don't try to do anything too drastic, but I do believe that, I wouldn't say I believe in karma, but, and I don't do it because I don't do these things because I want to, upset or increase the balance of karma. But I do believe what goes around comes around to a certain degree. And so I try to put good out to the world where I can, while still keeping a focus on myself. Obviously that weekend I'm my highest priority, but I don't think it really takes zero effort for me to go and ask someone if they need a bottle of water or something like that. And again, it just comes from that place of immense gratitude because, especially post injury, even more to a degree now, like there was a good chance I was never going to be able to compete again. But luckily, through diligent rehab and focus, I'm in a place where I can. So now more than ever, I realize how lucky I am to be doing what I'm doing, and how lucky I am that someone like yourself finds me interesting enough to get on a podcast and chat about my experience. Because in 5 years' time, no one's going to give a shit. Because there'll be other people doing what I'm doing now, and my time will be up, and I'll just be an old fit dad who's got some war stories. So, it's immense gratitude and thankfulness, and that's where it comes from. And if I'm remembered for that, above even being a better athlete, then that's a nice impression and something that I am proud of. So I'm hopefully most people have that memory of me when I finish. When he was a great athlete, but he was also a good dude. So that's if I can go out like that, I'll be a happy man. But maybe one more CrossFit Games trip would seal the deal for me.
Sounds perfect. So let's hit these rapid fire questions and then I'll let you go for the day.
Awesome, man.
So it's 10 quick questions, just whatever comes to your mind. And so I saw that you have a super cool garage gym. Yes. It is sweet. What is your favorite part of your garage gym?
My favorite part of my garage gym? Honestly, my favorite part of my garage gym is all my son's equipment, because he usually what happens is I finish my training session and then he's banging on the door to come in. He kind of knows the routine. His toy room is right next to my gym, so he has like a little toy room with a spare room in the house, and that he can look through the window and see me in the gym. So when I'm training, I get to see him sort of pressed up against the window looking at me, and then he knows as soon as I finish, he'll hear the garage door come down, and he knows that's his time to come in. And he's got his own little barbell and plates, and no matter how tired or sore I am, or if I had a good session or a bad session, immediately when he comes down, I'm just in the best mood. So I have to say, his little barbell and him swinging on the rings, and the fact that it's nice and close to his room. So if I ever need motivation in the middle of a session, I can look up and smile, and he's right there. So that's probably my favorite part. That's
great. So your favorite teammate from Project X?
Oh, that's hard. I'm going to offend two people here. That's really difficult. I have to say Khan. I love the girls dearly, but me and Khan have a special bond, and I think let's leave it there. Khan.
Okay.
Hopefully the girls do this.
Coffee or pre-workout?
Coffee. I don't drink pre-workout. I only drink coffee. I'm a massive coffee fan. I drink too much of it, but for sure.
And what's your favorite kind of coffee?
It varies. If I'm training, I tend to just have like a strong black coffee with just a dash of milk just to soften a little bit. But if I'm out for breakfast or a meal with friends, it's a strong latte.
Best part about being a dad?
The best part about being a dad, I think, is seeing the amazement, or the amazing, I don't even know how to word this, just how amazing the world is through a child's eyes again. I think having a kid and seeing them get joy out of the most simple things really makes you realize, or you sort of forget how incredible life is. And you have a kid, and seeing them learn how to string words together, or seeing them have fun with a box or a rock, or it's just and how much joy they get out of it. It makes you realize material things aren't important. It makes you realize how lucky you are to be alive, and that's the part I've really enjoyed, particularly in this early phase.
That's great. And then favorite workout music?
That varies too. I got the weirdest playlist, man. Like I listen to some. I don't like anything overly heavy or crazy rap music, or I actually listen to like a lot of old stuff. So for the most part, I've got like a playlist which has got Queen and David Bowie and AC/DC, and it'll have there's a video of me doing a back squat PR not that long ago to Celine Dion. So it varies a lot, but I try to I don't know, I stick to the classics.
Well, your heart has to go on when it needs to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
So this may not be a good question, but favorite sanctional you've been to? You didn't like the sanctional season, so, but maybe
No,
you,
it's not that I didn't like the season. I just didn't really agree with the. I don't know. Like, I didn't like the fact that you could go to one event and do 5 events over 2 days and qualify for the games, and there'd be another event where there's 14 events over 3 days, and like there was no. I don't know. I didn't feel like the tests for the people getting there were, fair across the board, so to speak. Like, I didn't really feel like everyone was getting the same test going through. That was kind of a gripe I had about it. And I'd done a couple of events where the professionalism was noticeably less than the regionals. And that was kind of like when you've come from competing in Australia, especially the regionals was as big as the game because a lot of people couldn't get to the game. So the regional event down here was enormous. Like the stadium would sell out. The events were awesome. So to go from that to some of these sanctional events where there was 3 people in the crowd, and the events were a little bit like, I don't know if this is the right, test or whatever it may be. And it's not from a winning or losing point of view, but just from an experience point of view. That kind of was something I had a gripe with. But mate, like the Mayhem Classic was definitely the gold standard for me in terms of sanctionals. It was so well run. I loved the tight knit atmosphere where it was in the gym, but it was kind of like it still had a stadium feel about it. The competition was obviously amazing because the competitors, like every competitor in the field, had some sort of games experience. The little details, like they had throwdowns do the scoring, and we had like a lanyard with a barcode on it, which you could scan in at any time, and it would tell you what time your heats were, where you were on the leaderboard, what you placed for certain workouts. If there were changes, they would be updated immediately. So you were never in the dark about any information or logistics. They just had thought of everything and nailed everything. The security guards were amazing.
They thought of everything except for that major thunderstorm.
See, that was crazy. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. We were at the back, but even then, like that was a huge thing that they had to overcome. And as an athlete, it was not even a minor inconvenience because they were just on it. They had a plan and they figured it out. And we had to all put our bags up off the ground and whatnot, but we made it work. I mean, I'd totally forgotten about that till you just brought it up, so it obviously wasn't an issue.
Yeah. So what's your go-to breakfast?
At the moment, I go through phases where I'll eat something for 6 months and then change. But at the moment, I have a bacon and egg bagel. So I have a bagel, like just a plain bagel, with some bacon, a couple of eggs, and a slice of cheese on it. And then I have another half a bagel with something on it, like it'll be jam or honey or something like that, just for some extra carbs because I'm usually going into a training session. And then usually a couple of coffees.
A couple. That's all.
Yeah, a couple strong coffees.
Favorite cheat meal?
Pizza, any type, as long as it's good. But yeah, if pizza's ever an option, it's generally the one I go for.
Yeah, someone told me a long time ago, pizza's like sex. When it's good, it's really good, and when it's bad, still pretty good.
It's still good, yeah. I totally agree. Funnily enough, one of the worst pizzas I ever had was in Rome. We went to Italy, my wife and I, a couple of years ago, and on New Year's Eve we caught up with some friends over there and had pizza in Rome. And it was they say when you're in Rome, the closer you are to the Colosseum, the worse the food is because it's more touristy. And we were around the Colosseum, we're like, it can't be that bad. We went and had a pizza, and it was. I'm sure these guys had like just microwaved this pizza from a supermarket. It was awful. I was like, this is not what I expected when I come to Italy. But again, it was still pizza, so I'm not complaining.
Favorite thing to do on rest day?
Absolutely nothing. I try to be as far away from an athlete as possible. It's usually my day to catch up on some things around the house, like mowing the lawn and all that sort of stuff. But it's for me, it's like I find it. I really try hard to switch off when I'm with my family and not be an athlete. But on training days, it's always kind of still lingering there. And on my rest days, it's the one day where I can really just be super present. And not think about it at all, not be worried about what I have to do in the garage later on that night. And truth be told, I think the hardest part of being an athlete for me is that, so there's a general, I find, I talk about this a lot with people, is just the general lingering tiny bit of anxiety you've got all the time. Like as an athlete, it's always there. There's always something, you're always thinking about training, or if you're doing enough, or if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or food or sleep, or it's just this general tiny little bit of nagging anxiety. And on rest days, it kind of goes away for a bit, and you just chill out and relax. So when I retire, I'm looking forward to that going away for good, hopefully. But we're not there yet. I'll deal with it for a bit longer. And
your favorite lift?
I still love the snatch. It's you said with pizza's like sex. I think it's kind of like a bad relationship that you kind of stuck in. Like sometimes it hurts you, but I can't get away. So it's, I love the snatch. It's such a great expression of athleticism. When it's done right, it's one of the most beautiful things in the world. When it's that's by watching it, and also by feel. Like when you hit a good rep, it just everything's on song. But you obviously need to be incredibly strong, incredibly fast, incredibly flexible and mobile. And it's in my eyes one of the greatest expressions of fitness you can perform. So for that reason, it's still the snatch.
There's no better feeling than catching a snatch in the bottom of the squat.
No,
and knowing all you have to do is stand it up.
Yeah, it's the best. So when you're on song and you hit that rep and it's perfect, or it feels perfect, I agree. There's certainly in sport, in what I've done, there's no better feeling in the world. And when you do that in a packed out stadium and everyone cheers for you, it's even better again. And I've had a few of those moments, and they're very special. Well,
that's it for the rapid fire.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much, Brandon, for being on. This was a lot of fun. You're just a good dude. And so that legacy will go on, and hopefully this year you look like you're ready to kill it. And so I hope that you're back at the games and we can see you in Madison.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man. I hope so too. And it'll be good to see you in person again.
Yeah, awesome. Well, have a great day. I know you're working with the teams, so go cheer them on and get them ready for event 2.
Yep. I think they're going to do the front squat. Well, they may be doing it right now. There's a bit of commotion going on out there, so maybe they're squatting the house down right now. But they've got a couple more events today, so it'll be a fun day in the gym. But again, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Have a good one.
See you, man.